Write something here. For centuries, we've tilted our heads to the heavens, eyes tracing the stars, whispering the same restless question, are we the only ones out here? Ancient scrolls speak of glowing crafts that danced across stormy skies, defying every law of nature we cling to. Tribal elders passed down tales of ghostly beings, eyes too large, voices too silent, who appeared in the dead of night, only to vanish with the dawn. Secret files, locked away in dusty vaults, hint at civilizations so vast and ancient they make our proudest empires look like fleeting shadows. But what if those whispers aren't just stories? What if the truth is a jagged blade, sharper and colder than we're ready to face? Picture this: what if we've never been alone, not for a single heartbeat of human history? What if Earth isn't just another speck in the cosmic sea, but a glittering anomaly, a chessboard in a game we didn't even know we were playing? Watched, studied, hunted. Tonight, we rip open the pages of a forbidden chronicle, one stained with the echoes of forgotten wars. It's a story of invasion, not with guns or bombs, but with cunning so deep it rewrote our past. A story of survival against odds so impossible they'd make the bravest tremble. A cosmic clash where Earth became the prize and the battleground that could unravel the very fabric of the universe. What happens when an empire, older than time itself, turns its unblinking gaze toward us? When beings who've mastered the stars decide humanity's fate hangs by a thread. Stay with us as we unearth a truth so mind-bending, so explosive, it'll haunt your thoughts long after the screen fades to black. And if you think you've pieced together the ending, brace yourself, because this puzzle's final twist will turn everything upside down. Tell us in the comments, have we been blind all along? Are we pawns in a war we never saw coming? What's your wildest guess? Let's see who dares to unravel this first. The darkness of space loomed vast and endless, a cosmic void stretching infinitely beyond the fragile, blue-green world below. Stars flickered like ancient eyes, watching unblinking, waiting. And then, from the depths of the abyss, they arrived. A fleet of colossal, silver-black warships materialized from the shadows, their forms sleek and predatory, gliding into Earth's orbit like silent hunters. The largest of them, the unyielding Fist, bore the mark of conquest, its hull engraved with the ruins of civilizations long erased, testaments to the empire that had left nothing but dust in its wake. Inside the command deck, a cold, sterile glow illuminated the figures standing before a vast observation screen. Supreme Commander Kong stood with an air of practiced superiority, his four-fingered hand absently stroking the scaled ridge along his jaw. His yellow eyes gleamed with calculation as he gazed upon the unsuspecting planet. A mere speck in the cosmos, yet too rich to ignore. Beside him, Officer Kim, shorter but no less imposing, shifted uneasily. Her reptilian features twitched, her tail coiling with discomfort. Unlike Kong, she did not bask in overconfidence. The intelligence reports had been troubling. "Commander," she began, her voice a smooth, deliberate whisper. "There are anomalies." Kong exhaled sharply, his ridged brow narrowing. "Anomalies?" His voice was edged with dismissal. Kim tapped a control panel. Holographic projections flickered to life, displaying reports, intercepted communications, ancient files extracted from the Galactic archives. "They have survived multiple extinction-level events," she continued, her voice tinged with concern. "Their records, primitive as they are, speak of constant war, constant adaptation. They are resilient." Kong let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Resilience does not make them invincible. Look at them, still bound to a single rock, still burning fossil fuels like a fledgling species struggling to crawl." Kim hesitated. The commander's arrogance was dangerous. "Sir, there is more. Their fiction is strange. Their films, books, and myths are filled with warnings about extraterrestrial invasion. It is almost as if they have," she paused, searching for the right term, "been preparing for this moment." Kong waved a dismissive hand, stepping closer to the massive viewport. Below, Earth's oceans shimmered with silver light, its continents cast in a deep glow of the encroaching fleet. All species imagine threats from the stars before they actually face them. It is a universal trait of evolving intelligence. He turned, eyes gleaming with cold certainty. Initiate standard conquest protocol. At once, the warships moved into position, casting enormous shadows across the cities below. Columns of light beamed down, scanning Earth's surface, mapping every structure, every heat signature, every sign of resistance. A deep, resonant hum filled the atmosphere. The Donari spoke to the world, their message broadcast through every screen, every radio, every communication device. A sharp static crackled, then silence and unnatural, suffocating quiet. And then, the voice of Commander Kong filled the earth, a low, guttural growl, perfectly translated into every human language. People of Earth, your planet has been selected for incorporation into the Donari Empire. Surrender your resources. Offer 10% of your population as tribute. In return, you will be allowed to survive. You have 6 hours to comply. And then a silence more deafening than the message itself. On the surface, panic erupted like wildfire. Crowds flooded the streets, governments scrambled, the internet overflowed with chaos and speculation. But beneath the hysteria, in the hidden places where the real power of humanity lay, a different kind of response was unfolding. Deep within the fortified underground base beneath the Rocky Mountains, the Earth Defense Council convened. A room filled with the world's most powerful military leaders, scientists, and strategists. A place that, for decades, had remained in the shadows waiting, preparing. General Park, his face hardened by years of secrecy, stood at the center of the chamber, watching the live feed of the Donari fleet. He exchanged a glance with Admiral Joe, the head of Earth's naval defenses. Joe exhaled. So, it finally begins. Park nodded. His voice was calm. Too calm. We knew this day would come. He pressed a command panel. Around the world, hidden bases came to life. From the far side of the moon, unseen by Donari scanners, massive defense stations powered up. From deep beneath the oceans, submerged warships, cloaked for decades, emerged. From Mars, from Europa, from the asteroid belt, hidden human colonies, long kept secret, received their orders. And then, at last, the Earth Defense Council sent its response. The transmission was brief. The message was clear. A simple, human voice, calm, unwavering, absolute. To the Donari Empire, we decline. A pause. Then, leave our system immediately, or face annihilation. Silence. And for the first time, in the long, unbroken history of the Donari Empire, their warships, vast, monolithic behemoths, hung in the upper atmosphere, their dark hulls blotting out the stars, casting unnatural shadows upon the blue planet below. The fleet moved in perfect silence, gliding like spectral hunters through the void, their presence a cosmic omen. The flagship, the unyielding fist, was the heart of the invasion force, a fortress in space, plated with alloys that shimmered with an eerie, unnatural glow. Its edges were adorned with the battle scars of past conquests, the hull carved with the ancient symbols of fallen civilizations. Inside, on the command deck, the air was thick with sterile efficiency. Supreme Commander Kong stood before the enormous holographic viewport, his gaze locked onto the fragile blue-green sphere before him. His scaled hand traced absent-mindedly along the ridges of his jaw's silent habit of contemplation. Behind him, banks of controls pulsed with alien symbols, and an array of holographic tactical displays projected streams of data, biological scans, military assessments, atmospheric compositions, and deep energy signatures from Earth's surface. Officer Kim, his second-in-command, stood at his flank, her posture rigid, her amber eyes scanning the readouts with an intensity that betrayed her unease. Something was off. "Commander," she murmured, voice low and deliberate. "Something feels wrong." Kong didn't turn. His clawed fingers curled into a loose fist. "Explain." Kim hesitated. The data was clear. Earth was primitive. Their technology was centuries behind, still reliant on combustion fuels and crude digital systems. Yet, there was an uneasiness in the reports. "Their history is unusual," she said. "Their communications are saturated with speculation on extraterrestrial contact, planetary invasions, warfare beyond their world. It is as if they have been exhaled, expecting this. Kong let out a sharp, guttural sound, a mix between amusement and derision. All evolving species create stories of conquest and invasion before they ever touch the stars. It is a symptom of intelligence, nothing more. They are superstitious, paranoid, and deeply flawed. Kim frowned but remained silent. Kong turned from the viewport, striding toward the central command console. His gaze flickered over the planetary analysis displayed before him. The maps pulsed with infrared signatures, detailing population densities, infrastructure weak points, and energy sources. They are fractured. Weak. They still war among themselves, divide their own species into factions, burn their own land for resources. They do not even control the moon above their heads. His voice dropped, edged with cold finality. They stand no chance. Kim lowered her gaze. Arguing with Kong was pointless. But deep in her core, something unnamed stirred. Kong straightened, lifting his four-fingered hand, signaling to the officers stationed around the deck. Initiate planetary transmission. At once, the command center hummed to life. A deep vibrational pulse resonated through the ship's core as the Donari fleet's communication arrays activated. Across Earth, signals hijacked every broadcasting system, every satellite, every digital device. Billions of screens flickered, the static momentary, then came the image. The face of Supreme Commander Kong, bathed in the deep crimson glow of his ship's control room. His yellow, reptilian eyes burned through the transmission, his voice an unnatural resonance that translated seamlessly into every human language. People of Earth, he began, his tone measured, absolute. You have been chosen. The Donari Empire has arrived. You will surrender your governments, your resources, and a labor tribute of 10% of your population. In return, you will be allowed to survive to one day earn a place within the Dominion. A pause. The transmission carried a weight beyond mere words. A primal, unspoken pressure gripped humanity by the throat. Then, the final warning. You have 6 hours to comply. And then the transmission ended. A silence followed. But not a silence of peace. A silence of escalation. Cut to Earth's underground command center, the Rocky Mountains. Far beneath the surface of North America, within the fortified subterranean chambers of the Earth Defense Council, the air crackled with a different kind of energy. The room, a vast war chamber carved into bedrock, was a nerve center of silent, urgent calculation. Massive screens lined the walls, displaying the orbiting fleet, intercepted transmissions, and classified schematics. Men and women in uniform moved with calculated precision, their faces grim, resolute. They had been waiting for this moment. At the center of the room, General Park stood, his aged yet unshaken presence commanding the space. His hands were pressed against the surface of the holographic war table, his eyes locked onto the tactical display of the Donari fleet above them. A long silence, then. So, he murmured, his voice a low rumble, it has begun. With a sudden, sharp motion, he slammed his fist onto the table. We knew this day would come. Across from him, Admiral Joe, the head of Orbital Defense Operations, leaned forward. His features were tense, but his lips curled slightly in something resembling a smirk. They don't know what's waiting for them, Joe said. Park exhaled through his nose, gaze shifting to the far end of the war room, where a wall of classified reports and classified projects were displayed. Decades of secrecy, of preparation, of technology built in the shadows. Slowly, Park lifted a single hand and tapped a button on the war table. Across the solar system, hidden facilities responded. From the far side of the moon, stealth stations uncloaked, their massive energy weapons primed. From the depths of Earth's oceans, submerged warships surfaced, their hulls glistening with classified technology scavenged from past encounters. From Mars, Europa, and beyond, secret human colonies, long concealed, prepared for war. A signal pulsed through encrypted channels, activating the Earth defense grid, a network of planetary shields, kinetic weapons, and classified war machines hidden in plain sight. At last, Park turned toward the gathered military leaders. His expression unchanging, his voice calm as steel. "We have 6 hours. A pause. Prepare for war." The stillness of space was shattered by an act of sheer, calculated devastation. Aboard the unyielding fist, Commander Kong stood with an air of predatory satisfaction, his yellow eyes glinting as he watched the raw display of power unfold on the main view screen. On Earth's surface, a small, uninhabited island had once stood. Now, it was gone. The Donari's planetary siege cannon had fired a pulse of pure annihilation, a beam so bright that for a moment, it outshone the sun. The explosion had left nothing but a churning, glowing crater in the Pacific, the ocean roaring in protest, waves cascading outward in great, titanic walls. Silence followed. Kong allowed himself a smirk. "That," he said, voice thick with amusement, "should be enough to break their spirits." Around him, his officers exhaled in satisfaction. The shockwave of their attack would be felt across the planet. The people of Earth would see. They would understand the futility of resistance. And yet, a sound pierced the bridge. A single alarm. Sharp. Urgent. Wrong. Kang's smirk faded. A second alarm. Then a third. The calm, victorious atmosphere collapsed as red warning glyphs flooded the tactical displays. The sensor officer's voice trembled. "Commander, we have an anomaly." The words hung in the air like a storm on the horizon. Earth's response. Across the vast blackness of space, the illusion of Earth's vulnerability shattered. The counterstrike did not come from conventional forces. It did not come from panicked, scrambling defenses. It came from the shadows. From the void itself. High above Earth's surface, stealth warships decloaked, their angular hulls materializing like spectral rays. They had been there the entire time, unseen, undetected, watching, waiting. From the depths of the oceans, hidden military bases surged to life. Massive submersible carriers, concealed beneath the waves for decades, now rose toward the sky, breaching the water like awakened leviathans, their hull plating dripping as they ascended. And from the moon, from Mars, from Europa's ice-crusted depths, other war machines began to rise. They had always been there. They had always been ready. The first kill. A flash. A brilliant, searing lance of energy erupted from Earth's moon base, a precision beam fired at impossible speed. It was not like any human weapon the Donari had seen before. This was gravity-forged, something unnatural, something built from reverse-engineered alien technology. The beam punched straight through the hull of a Donari cruiser, slicing through its core with ease. For an instant, the vessel remained whole. And then it folded inward. Like a crushed aluminum can, the warship imploded, its structure warping under unfathomable forces before exploding into 1,000 burning fragments. The unyielding fist rocked as the shockwave hit. Kang's eyes widened. On the tactical display, a second Donari vessel buckled under an unseen force, its armor cracking like fragile glass before it too was consumed in a silent firestorm. And then a third. In mere seconds, 3 Donari warships were gone. Vaporized. Destroyed. And they hadn't even fired back yet. The tides of battle turned. For the first time in his career, Commander Kong felt something unfamiliar slither through his chest. Doubt. Beside him, Officer Kim's voice was barely above a whisper. "Commander." She turned toward him, her reptilian pupils narrow, her breathing tight. "They were ready for us." Kong snapped his gaze back to the screen. What had once been a clear, simple conquest had transformed into a nightmare of tactical miscalculation. Earth's response was not that of a frightened, desperate species. This was coordinated. Planned. Precise. As he watched, human strike craft faster, deadlier than expected cut through Donari formations with brutal efficiency. Squadrons of black-winged starfighters moved in perfect synchrony, weaving between enemy ships, firing experimental weaponry that destabilized the very structure of Donari hulls. Missiles, silent in the void, surged forward in clusters, some conventional, others something else entirely, warheads pulsing with unrecognizable energy fields. A fleet of larger, unseen warships now emerged from their hiding places, their hulls marked not with national insignias, but with the sigils of a unified, hidden force, the Earth Defense Fleet. For the first time in the history of the Donari Empire, a world they had targeted for conquest was winning the opening battle. Khan felt his confidence crack. "Retaliate," he roared, his voice raw with disbelief. "Destroy them all." His officers scrambled to respond, but Earth had seized the tempo of battle. The chaos of war. In the vastness of the upper atmosphere, explosions bloomed like dying stars. Energy beams sliced through the void, weaving through the battlefield like glowing serpents. Earth's warships moved with unnatural precision, their movements eerily calculated, as if they knew the Donari battle formations before they even deployed them. For every Donari ship that retaliated, 3 more were outmaneuvered, crippled, torn apart. And worst of all, the humans were learning. Tactical screens aboard the unyielding Fist now showed something horrifying. Donari technology, once thought to be superior, was being turned against them. Human fighters had already begun adapting Donari flight patterns, adjusting their attack runs with uncanny efficiency. A squadron of Earth's experimental fighters locked onto a Donari battlecruiser, mirroring its evasive maneuvers perfectly, as if anticipating every movement before unleashing a coordinated barrage of gravitational torpedoes. The Donari warship buckled, collapsed inward, and then vanished into a pocket of unnatural space. Commander Kang's blood ran cold. This was not a resistance. This was a hunt. And for the first time in recorded history, the Donari Empire was not the predator. They were the prey. Deep beneath the surface of the Earth, hidden from the eyes of the public, a classified military research facility pulsed with a dim, sterile glow. The air inside was heavy, thick with the weight of knowledge long kept secret. Rows of reinforced glass cases lined the chamber, each containing artifacts that should not exist on Earth, remnants of technologies far beyond human understanding. Metallic fragments from crashed sites, energy cores still humming faintly with alien resonance, devices with no known function but with structures eerily precise, as if built by something not bound by time. At the heart of the chamber, a circular holographic console flickered to life, displaying a classified file, Operation Starvale. Lines of encrypted text scrolled across the screen, interwoven with archive footage. A Donari scout vessel crashed in the deserts of Roswell. A damaged probe, discovered deep beneath the Arctic ice, predating recorded history. An unidentified craft, recovered from the ocean depths near the Bermuda Triangle. The revelations were staggering. Humanity had never been alone. Every encounter, every anomaly, every whispered conspiracy theory, they had all been real. And they had all led to this moment. Dr. Amelia Hayes, one of the lead researchers, ran her fingers over a translucent, hexagonal tablet, a relic from an unknown civilization, its inscriptions still undeciphered. "We were never the first. But we are the last," she whispered. A sharp click echoed through the room as General Park entered, his uniform crisp, his presence commanding. He strode forward, stopping before the central console, where a massive holographic display of Earth rotated slowly, marked with dozens of hidden installations, facilities, and weapons platforms. His gaze settled on the files displayed before him, 7 past invasion attempts. 7 failures. Each marked with the same conclusion. No invading force has ever left Earth intact. He exhaled slowly, the ghost of a smirk playing at the edge of his lips. "They think we're primitives," he muttered. His fingers hovered over the console, selecting a final hidden file, one that even the most powerful world leaders had never seen. A classified video feed, time-stamped from over 5 decades ago. The grainy footage flickered to life, showing a crashed site illuminated by floodlights. Military personnel stood in a half-circle, weapons drawn, surrounding something writhing in the center of the wreckage. A creature, its body half-formed, as if phasing between dimensions. It looked up, and then the screen cut to black. A single message appeared on the holographic display. "Do not engage Earth. You will not return." Park's grip tightened into a fist. He turned toward his officers. "They have no idea what we've been hiding." Cut to the Galactic Council, the chamber of 1,000 worlds. Far beyond the battle unfolding near Earth, within the heart of the galactic core, an ancient hall of cosmic power stood in eerie silence. The Galactic Council Chamber was a place of order, of governance, of law. A vast domed cathedral of the void, where the representatives of over 300 species convened in rings of tiered platforms, each seated within an environment tailored to their biology, some in water-filled spheres, others within sealed radiation chambers, and a few existing only as shimmering entities of light. At the center, floating above the assembly, was the eldest of them all. A being of translucent, shifting energy, a council elder of the Zorkai, a race so ancient they had seen empires rise and fall before humanity had even learned to shape fire. His voice resonated through the chamber, not spoken, but felt, his luminous form pulsing as he spoke. The matter before us is grave. Earth, a world long classified, long observed, long feared. And now, the Donari have broken the silence. A ripple of unease spread through the gathered species. Some whispered in their native tongues, others merely blinked their luminescent eyes, exchanging unspoken concerns. The elder turned his gaze toward the center of the chamber, where a holographic projection of Earth now floated, surrounded by a web of interstellar reports, historical data, and warnings sealed for millennia. With a slow, deliberate motion, the elder raised a spectral hand. A hidden archive, locked for over 5,000 years, was revealed. And then, the words that changed everything. Earth is a designated quarantine world. A collective hush fell over the chamber. Even the most war-hardened races, those who had conquered dozens of systems, now sat frozen in place. No species has ever conquered it and survived. The revelation shook the foundations of the assembly. The Donari ambassador, an imposing figure clad in battle-scarred armor, leapt to his feet, his voice a thunderous snarl. "This is deception," he roared. His scaled hand slammed against the council floor, his golden eyes blazing. Earth is a primitive world. It is nothing but a collection of warring tribes masquerading as a civilization. A world of savages. We must destroy them before they spread further. His words echoed through the chamber, but they did not bring agreement. Instead, only silence. A silence of uncertainty. Of fear. Of something far older than conquest. The council elder tilted his head slightly, his shifting form pulsating with a strange, unreadable energy. And yet, no invader has ever returned from their soil. The Donari ambassador's fists clenched. His people were already at war. Already committed. The Donari Empire had never lost a conquest. They would not lose now. With a harsh, guttural exhale, he straightened his stance. It is too late to turn back. And somewhere, far across the stars, the future of Earth and the galaxy itself was about to be rewritten. Cut to deep space. The Donari reinforcements arrive. Beyond the orbit of Pluto, in the cold abyss of interstellar darkness, a massive fleet of warships pushed through the void. 80 warships. A force meant to crush worlds. Their hulls were obsidian black, moving like a swarm of locusts against the pale glow of distant suns. At the heart of the fleet, within the command bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought, the Devourer, stood Admiral June, a veteran of 100 campaigns, his face etched with scars, his armor adorned with the emblems of past victories. The incoming message flickered onto his screen. Commander Kang's voice crackled through the interstellar transmission. "Admiral, the humans are not what we expected." June smirked, arms crossed, his eyes burning with confidence. "This time, we will not fail." His hands moved over the controls. The Donari Armada adjusted course. The engines of 80 warships burned with the fury of a dying sun, their shadows stretching across the endless void. They were coming. This time, they would wipe Earth from existence. Or so they thought. The abyss opens. Beyond the orbit of Mars, where the asteroid belt carved an endless ring of celestial debris, the final confrontation had begun. The Donari fleet, once an unchallenged force of conquest, was now fractured, disoriented, and dangerously close to unraveling. Their warships, designed for overwhelming planetary sieges, were not built to fight ghosts, and ghosts were exactly what they were facing. At the heart of the battle, amidst shattered rock and drifting wreckage, the dimensional phase shifter hummed ominously. This was humanity's most dangerous secret, a weapon not designed to destroy, but to erase. It did not leave wreckage. It did not leave survivors. It did not even leave a memory. With a silent pulse, reality itself twisted. 3 Donari warships, each larger than entire cities, vanished. There was no explosion. No shockwave. No debris. They were simply gone as if they had never existed. A deep, unnatural void remained in their place, a wound in space itself. The Donari had no words for what had just occurred. They had seen ships destroyed, obliterated by weapons of great power, but this was different. The crew aboard the unyielding Fist watched in stunned silence. Then panic. A fractured empire. Commander Khan gripped the edge of his console, claws digging into the metal as he stared at the empty void where his ships had been just moments before. What is this? His voice was low, trembling with an emotion unfamiliar to him, fear. Across the Donari fleet, confusion turned to terror. The once glorious armada, a force that had crushed civilizations with merciless efficiency, was now hesitating, faltering. Kang's tactical screens flashed with chaotic signals, captains demanding orders, weapons officers screaming about energy readings they could not explain. Then, from the blackness, another human warship emerged, its hull sleek and smooth, its markings devoid of any national insignia. This was not a fleet of divided nations. This was something else. They had always thought humans were at war with each other, that their world was fractured, weak, incapable of unification. But now, for the first time, Kang understood the truth. Humanity had never been divided. They had been waiting. Commander, Officer Kim's voice was barely a whisper, her golden eyes fixed on the swirling distortions in space. We are not fighting a lesser species. We are fighting something else. Kang's hands clenched into fists. His confidence, his entire understanding of the universe was unraveling. And then, he made the only choice left. Retreat. Retreat. The order rippled through the fleet. Donari warships turned, their engines flaring as they fled toward deep space. The great warships of the Empire, once seen as unstoppable, now fled like wounded animals, their formations shattered. But Earth's forces did not pursue. The trap had been set long ago. And it had been sprung perfectly. The judgment of the galaxy. Far from the battle, within the hallowed halls of the Galactic Council, the fate of Earth and perhaps the galaxy itself was being decided. The chamber was vast, an ancient construct of alien architecture, its ceilings etched with constellations that had existed long before Earth had even formed. Hundreds of representatives, from over 300 species, sat in their designated rings, each within an environment suited to their biology, some breathing toxic gases, others submerged in water-filled chambers, a few existing as pure energy within containment fields. They had all gathered for one reason. Humanity had revealed itself. At the center of the chamber, standing alone on the speaker's platform, was Ambassador Lee, Earth's first and only representative to the greater galaxy. He was an older man, dressed simply, without the elaborate garments worn by the other diplomats. His presence was not adorned with symbols of power, and yet, his very existence carried more weight than any empire present. His voice, though calm, cut through the chamber like a blade. We didn't start this war. The chamber stilled. Some leaned forward, listening intently. Others narrowed their eyes, suspicion creeping into their expressions. But we will finish it. A murmur spread through the assembly. Some species, those who had long watched humanity from afar, now looked at them with new eyes. Others felt fear creeping into their bones. A member of the Zorkai, an elder race that had observed the rise and fall of civilizations for over 100,000 years, studied Lee carefully. They are not normal, he murmured in his ancient tongue. They evolve under pressure. They change, they adapt, and they do not break. The Donari ambassador, still seething from the humiliation of his people's retreat, slammed his fist against the table. They are dangerous, he bellowed. They hide in the shadows, They steal technology, they prepare for wars they do not declare. This is deception. His voice echoed, but it did not carry the same power it once did. More voices rose in response. A representative from the peaceful New Ray Confederation stood, their form a shimmering blue mist. Or perhaps, they said slowly, this was not deception at all. Perhaps they have simply learned the truths we ignored. More whispers. More uncertainty. More change. For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Order was shifting. The battle is over, but the war has just begun. Back on Earth, amidst the smoldering remains of battle, humanity did not celebrate. There was no grand parade. No declarations of victory. Because they knew the truth. This was not an end. This was only the beginning. Far beyond the edges of the solar system, in the places where no light had ever reached, other empires watched. Other forces, greater than the Donari, turned their gaze toward the blue planet that had defied the inevitable. And in the depths of space, something ancient stirred. It had seen many wars. It had seen many species rise and fall. But never had it seen one like humanity. Not one that adapted. Not one that refused to yield. Not one that fought in the darkness and emerged stronger. The war was over. But the real battle had yet to begin. The Emperor's rage. Across the vast expanse of the Donari home world, beneath the endless black spires of the Imperial Citadel, an unnatural silence had settled. The great halls of the Empire, once filled with the booming voices of conquest, now trembled under the weight of humiliation. At the center of the throne chamber, bathed in the cold, flickering light of war reports, stood Emperor Gil of the Donari Empire. His scaled hands gripped the edges of his war table, claws digging into the metal as he watched real-time footage of his once mighty fleet retreating from the Sol system. His golden eyes, usually alight with the hunger of a conqueror, now burned with something far darker, a rage twisting into something else. Fear. The words of his counselors and generals blurred into noise around him. Unacceptable. A disgrace to the Empire. Earth must be erased from the stars. The Emperor did not speak. He simply lifted a single hand, and the chamber fell silent. Slowly, he turned his gaze toward his war minister, whose body tensed under the weight of the Emperor's attention. Deploy the Nova Sphere? A hush fell over the chamber. Even the most hardened Donari officers, those who had orchestrated planetary sieges, now shifted uneasily. The Nova Sphere, a weapon of extinction. Not a bomb. Not an invasion fleet. But a star killer, a device designed to wipe an entire biosphere from existence, reducing worlds to nothing but floating dust. It had been used only once before. And the memory of that barren, lifeless system still haunted the oldest members of the Empire. The war minister hesitated. His voice, though strong, carried a trace of hesitation. Majesty, the Galactic Council. I do not care about the Council, the Emperor roared, his voice rattling the pillars of the chamber. I care about the survival of my empire. About the message we send to the stars. His claws scraped across the table as he leaned forward. We will remind this galaxy that no one humiliates the Donari and lives to tell of it. The betrayal of a legend. The Imperial fleet, battered but still vast, assembled around the weapon ship carrying the Nova Sphere. It was unlike any vessel in their navy, a fortress of black metal, surrounded by energy field stabilizers, its core pulsing with the light of an artificial supernova. The countdown began. Within minutes, Earth would cease to exist. But as the final sequence initiated, as the Empire's greatest act of revenge prepared to unfold, a single voice cut through the silence of the fleet's command channels. Stand down. A flicker of static. Then, the voice again. I repeat, stand down. This is Admiral June. Inside the Imperial command carrier, the bridge crew froze. Admiral June. A war hero. A commander whose name had been whispered in fear by 100 conquered worlds. He was Donari to his core. Loyal. Unshakable. And yet, his voice carried none of the certainty it once held. Inside his personal command ship, Jun sat in his war chair, his expression etched in deep contemplation. He had watched the battle. He had seen the impossible, a species that should have fallen, that should have crumbled under the might of the Donari war machine, rise and strike back with the precision of something far greater than a simple planetary defense force. Humanity had changed the game. And now, his emperor was about to make a mistake that would doom them all. His hands tightened around the controls. I cannot allow this. With a single, final command, he redirected the entire firepower of his personal fleet onto the Novosphere carrier. The Imperial command channels erupted into chaos. Admiral, what are you doing? Cease fire. That is an Imperial weapon. Traitor. But it was too late. The first torpedoes struck the stabilizers. Then came the rupture of the core field. The final explosion was silent in the void, but the energy it unleashed rippled through the fabric of space. The Novosphere was destroyed. Earth was spared. And Admiral Jun had just betrayed his empire. The balance of power shifts. The Galactic Council convened in an emergency session, the vast chamber now filled with 1,000 voices speaking at once, all arguing, all questioning. Humanity had done the impossible. They had defeated an empire. And now, before them, stood Ambassador Li, unshaken, unapologetic. The council watched him, studied him, weighed the future of the galaxy in his words. His voice was calm, steady. We did not seek war. We did not wish for conquest. But we will not be slaves. And we will never kneel. The chamber hushed. Then, one by one, some species nodded in respect. Others exchanged glances of unease. And some, the oldest of them all, merely watched in silence, knowing what this moment meant. The vote was cast. For the first time in galactic history, Earth was recognized not as a backwater world, not as a primitive civilization, but as a rising power. The Donari, once feared, now found themselves broken, fractured, their empire no longer unquestioned. Enemies had become allies. Old alliances had shifted. And humanity had changed the destiny of the stars. Epilogue, a new order. Years passed. The Galactic Council now had a new seat, one that had never existed before. A seat for Earth. The once hidden military fleets of humanity now patrolled the void openly, no longer the shadows of a secret war, but the vanguard of a new order. And beyond the edges of known space, far in the unexplored darkness, something stirred. Something ancient. Something that had seen what Earth had done. A silent message, carried on cosmic waves, reached the hidden corners of the universe. A warning. The quarantine is broken. And in the cold abyss, something else began to move toward the solar system. The war was over. But the real battle had only just begun. The halls of the Earth War Museum stretched endlessly beneath a vast glass dome, where the twilight sky cast fractured reflections across the polished floor. Once a shattered ruin, a skeletal remnant of the Donari invasion, this place had risen anew, not as a mere tribute to the past, but as a towering testament to what humanity had endured. The air hummed with quiet reverence, every corner steeped in the weight of a war that had reshaped the galaxy. Artifacts stood like ghosts trapped in time, jagged shards of Donari warships, their hulls blackened and twisted by unimaginable heat, weapons once deemed invincible, now reduced to molten relics under shimmering stasis fields, and holographic echoes of the final battle, a swirling chaos of light and shadow where Earth defied the odds and turned the tide. Visitors drifted through the corridors, their whispers swallowed by the vastness, but one figure paused, a young Donari child, scales glinting faintly under the artificial glow. His small, clawed hand brushed a golden plaque at the museum's heart, its engraved words a mystery to his untested mind. What does it say? He asked, his voice a fragile thread in the silence. Beside him stood his father, a Donari once clad in the armor of conquest, now draped in the robes of a historian. His race, once rulers of stars, had been humbled, not obliterated, not forgotten, but transformed by the fire of defeat. He stared at the plaque, the human script etched into his soul from years of reflection. Throughout history, he began, his voice low and resonant, carrying the weight of a warrior who'd seen too much. Humanity's greatest strength was not their technology, but their will to fight for survival. The child's golden eyes widened, a spark of understanding flickering within them. "Is that why we lost?" he pressed, tilting his head with innocent curiosity. His father's gaze drifted, lost in the memory of burning skies and shattered fleets. A long silence stretched between them, heavy with the ghosts of a fallen empire. "No," he said at last, his tone softening, almost reverent. "That is why we are still here." The words hung in the air, a bridge between victor and vanquished, a fragile thread tying two worlds together. Beyond the museum's cold metal walls, beyond the scarred surface of Earth, beyond even the stars the Donari once sought to claim, history pulsed with a truth too vast to contain. The war had not been the end, it had been the spark, the birth of something far greater, something that now rippled through the cosmos like a tremor foretelling a storm. Far above, beyond the thin veil of Earth's atmosphere, the void churned with new life. A fleet unlike any the universe had witnessed was taking shape, an armada born not of conquest, but of necessity. Human warships, sleek and deadly, gleamed beside the reptilian curves of Donari cruisers, their once hostile designs now fused in uneasy harmony. New Ray-Bio ships pulsed with organic light, tendrils of living energy weaving through their hulls, while other vessels crafted by species once sworn enemies joined the ranks, their strange silhouettes a testament to an alliance forged in the crucible of survival. At the forefront stood the Guardian, Earth's flagship, its hull a patchwork of human steel and alien alloys, its insignia a bold declaration of unity. On the command deck, Admiral Park stared into the holographic abyss before him, a map of stars streaked with an anomaly, a distant signal slicing through the dark like a knife. It was no ordinary transmission. It was a warning, a pulse from something ancient, something that had watched the rise and fall of worlds long before humanity ever dreamed of the stars. "We have never seen this energy signature before," crackled the voice of a Zorkite elder, his translucent form shimmering in the hollow display. His words carried the weight of millennia. "It is beyond anything recorded in galactic history, beyond our wars, beyond our gods." Admiral Park's jaw tightened, his breath slow and deliberate. The battlefield had shifted. This was no longer about defending a single planet, no longer about licking wounds or celebrating victories. This was about what lay ahead, an unseen frontier where survival meant confronting the unknown head-on. He turned to the fleet, his voice cutting through the silence like steel. "Set course for the edge of the galaxy." Engines roared to life, a symphony of power that shook the void. Warp drives flared, bending space itself as the greatest fleet ever assembled vanished into the blackness, not fleeing, not cowering, but charging toward a destiny they could not yet name. And far beyond the Milky Way, in the uncharted depths where light dared not linger, something ancient stirred. It was older than the stars, older than time itself, a presence that had watched empires devour each other, had seen species rise in glory only to crumble into dust. It had remained untouched, unchallenged, a silent arbiter of the cosmos, until this moment. For the first time in its endless existence, it felt a tremor, a ripple of defiance, a force that refused to fade quietly into the night. It felt them. A species that didn't just endure, but fought back with a ferocity that defied reason. A species that turned defeat into a legacy, ruin into rebirth. And in the vast, whispering dark, a name began to echo, a name that carried a weight it had never borne before. Humanity. The universe trembled, its ancient rhythms disrupted by this new player on the board. Was this the dawn of an era, or the prelude to an annihilation too vast to grasp? The answer lay out there, in the abyss, waiting to be claimed or to claim them all. The screen fades to black, but the story doesn't end, it explodes into 1,000 unanswered questions. What is this ancient force, and why does it stir now? Is this alliance strong enough to face what's coming, or will it fracture under the weight of its own making? Tell us in the comments, do you think humanity's ready for this fight, or have we just awakened a nightmare we can't outrun? What's out there, an enemy, a mystery, or something that will redefine everything we know? Drop your boldest predictions below, because whatever's next, it's already moving, and the clock is ticking. The universe will never recover from this. What began as a whisper in the dark, a fleeting signal, A tremor across the stars erupted into a cataclysm that tore through the fabric of reality itself. The invasion was no mere assault, it was a reckoning, a collision of worlds that left the cosmos reeling. And at its heart stood Earth, not the quiet, unassuming planet we once thought it to be, but a defiant enigma, a crucible forged in chaos. This wasn't just a backwater rock spinning aimlessly in the void. No, it was a proving ground, a riddle etched into the annals of time, a force so relentless it brought a star-spanning empire to its knees. But as the echoes of that final battle fade, as the wreckage of their gleaming ships drifts silently into the abyss, a shadow creeps over the triumph. The air feels heavier now, charged with something unspoken. We struck down a foe that had conquered galaxies, shattered civilizations older than our sun, and painted their banners across the infinite. Yet, in the stillness that follows, a question claws its way to the surface, sharp and unrelenting. If we could do this, if humanity could rise from the dirt and topple titans, what else is out there, watching from the unseen corners of the void? Think about it. Beyond the horizon of our victory, beyond the charred remnants of their arrogance, something stirs. Something that doesn't flinch at the fall of empires. Something that has waited, patient and eternal, through eons we can't even fathom. Have we truly won, or have we lit a beacon in the dark, a signal that screams our defiance too loudly, too boldly, drawing the gaze of forces so vast they dwarf the invaders we just buried? What if this wasn't the end, but the prelude, a single note in a symphony of chaos yet to unfold? The stars above no longer feel like distant dreams, they pulse with secrets, with threats veiled in silence. Every flicker could be a ship. Every shadow could be a hunter. Earth stands taller now, yes, but at what cost? Are we the victors basking in glory, or the prey who've just stepped into a trap too intricate to see? The truth hangs just out of reach, tantalizing and terrifying, daring us to look closer. This isn't where the story stops, it's where it splinters, where the threads of fate twist into a labyrinth of possibilities, each one darker and stranger than the last. We've opened a door, but to what? Tell us in the comments, do you believe Earth's finally safe, or are we perched on the brink of something so colossal it'll swallow us whole? What's waiting out there, an ally, a predator, or a god we've accidentally provoked? Unleash your wildest guesses below, because whatever comes next, it's already watching, and we're running out of time to figure it out.